So I'm speaking to the filmmaker behind Thirstygirl, which was selected among 53 short films out of 12,000 submissions. So that's a remarkable feat in itself. But what's also kind of cool is that Sundance, um, as a gatekeeper, they don't mandate that it be a world premiere or like an award winner at a major other film festival. So I was quite surprised when I started doing a little bit of research into your film. I saw that, okay, it actually had play dates in 2023. So for you to submit to Sundance, I'm thinking, if I'm you or the producer, I'm thinking, oh, yeah, we probably won't get in because we've already been at these other film festivals. Was that the headset or mind space that you guys were in?
100%. Yeah, multiple people told me that there was no chance that Thirsty Girl would get into Sundance because it wasn't a premiere, because it's so competitive. So some people were like, don't bother, save that submission money for another festival. But luckily, a couple people who had played Sundance before with their shorts, including a mentor, Maria Gracia Turgeon. She was the producer of the short film Fauve, which was like, yeah, I know, incredible.
Amazing.
That's one of the films. So she was like, no, we played Sundance late into our festival journey. And I was like, yeah, but girl, Bob was like the best short film of the year and was nominated for an Oscar and played like literally every festival and won awards at like almost every festival it played. But I was like, okay, you know, um, I think I definitely didn't think Thirsty Girl had a chance of being selected, but part of me maybe thought it was possible, and that's why I submitted. And I'm really glad I did.
And if I told you a decade ago that you'd be directing a short film, I don't think you would believe it. But I just wanted to get a sense of your background and how all these different stages in your life contributed to you, wanting to get into this field to begin with.
But yeah, so I have quite a multicultural background. I was born and raised between Paris and Hong Kong, but mostly Paris. Um, my mom moved us back to Paris when I was 7, and then that's where I stayed until I was 18. My father's Chinese, my mom is half French, half Filipina. And so I grew up speaking both French and English in my home, though considered myself to be, well, first and foremost, a French person until I came to the States for college. I studied computer science at NYU and started a career as a software engineer in the New York tech space, which was very fun and rewarding and also very difficult because as a young woman in tech at the time, like 10 years ago, before the Me Too movement, I experienced a lot of sexual discrimination and sexual harassment and a lot of very scary experiences in the workplace. And that's what led me to start working in the diversity, inclusion, anti-racism field. I became really passionate about teaching people, other people who didn't look like what a typical programmer looks like, teaching them how to code so that we could like change the face of technology. And one day it's not like you see someone and you make a quick judgment of like, well, this person must not be a coder. Um, and then I became very passionate about the movement to end mass incarceration. In my studies about diversity inclusion, I learned about the legacy of slavery and anti-Black racism in the current criminal justice system in the US. And I felt this must be, I think, the biggest injustice of my current time is how I
Mm-hmm.
felt, how I still feel. And so I decided to start teaching formerly incarcerated people how to code once they come home from prison so that they can have access to better work opportunities. Because the main reason that people get trapped into the prison cycle is that they cannot find a job after they come home from prison. And I started a nonprofit called Emergent Works that teaches people to code when they get home from prison. That I was very passionate about, did that for many years, and was lucky enough to raise, $1 million from Twitter founder Jack Dorsey for the organization. And then during that time, I also got sober from drugs and alcohol. So I'm a recovering addict. And one thing that happens for a lot of us who get sober, not all of us, but a lot of us, is we just get experienced this like overwhelming amount of feelings for the first time in a very long time. And for me, I just started expressing them every day through art. Like I just started drawing and writing poetry every day. And I put on this one woman show about my first year of sobriety, and art just became the most important thing in my life. And my friends kept telling me like, you should write a book and you should do this. And I kept saying over and over, no, I want to write a film. Because since I was a child, my great love has been cinema. Like, and I just never thought that I would be able to be a director. I just didn't think this was a viable path for me. And I think part of me just didn't want to try because I didn't want to fail at my like purest dream. Um, and but after a year of saying every day, I want to make films, I want to make films, I realized like life is short. You have to go for it. And it was very hard to tear myself away from my nonprofit because it was truly my baby. But at the same time, I always knew that I wanted to hand it off to someone who actually had experience with prison directly, because that is who should be running our activist movements. It's people who have the most direct experience with the issue. And so once we raised our first $1 million, I was able to hire someone to replace me who had actually been a student of mine. And he's still running the organization now. He's doing amazing. And I, advise him, but very low touch. He's like, he doesn't really need me anymore. And the next day, I started writing the Thirstygirl feature, literally the next day that I quit. And Thirstygirl, as you know, is about sex addiction. I'm a recovering sex addict, and I knew immediately when I thought about what my first film was going to be about, I knew I wanted to be about this because it is the addiction that has been the most devastating to my personal life, and also the one that has the least understanding in society, and the most stigma. And like most people don't even believe it's a real addiction. But from my experience, when I was going through it, there's no other way to describe it. And I know that's true for a lot of people. And so I knew I wanted my film to be about this. And I love all the films and TV shows about sex addiction that are out there, like Shame, Nymphomaniac, Fleabag. I love those films and TV shows. And I felt like there was a perspective in the canon that was missing, one that gave a little bit more of a compassionate view of a sex addict, more understanding of where that comes from, and also a little bit of a more hopeful portrayal, not just like, kind of depraved misadventures. And so that's what I wanted to do with Thirstygirl. And I also wanted to make a film where the sex addict was an Asian woman, which is also something I hadn't seen before. So that is my story. As to, what makes my film different, I didn't go to film school. So I think a lot of the things you learn in film school about how to make a film, I didn't learn them. So that's maybe where you're getting the like slight difference from other films. I know a lot of great filmmakers didn't go to film school either, but I'm just like learning everything on the fly. So a lot is very intuitive, and also a lot comes from the guidance of my amazing collaborators. My husband, Esteban Pedraza, who was our editor and creative producer, and our DP, Fletcher Wolf, and our producer and casting director, Brooke Goldman, like they really helped inform the film.
So that first day on set, I mean, you were writing this as a feature for a very long time, and then at some point you said, "Okay, I want to attempt the short." What was that first day on set for you? Because again, you seem, just in this conversation so far, you seem to have this idea. It percolates a little bit, and then you just go for it. But it's a whole other thing to work in an isolated experience. It's a very solitary thing to write a screenplay. How is it that first day on set where you're saying, oh, okay, all these tools, I've never used these tools, they're all brand new tools. But like you said, you were accompanied by a whole bunch of people that were experienced. So describe to me what that first day on set was like for you.
I used to dream about that first day on set. I used to meditate a lot. That's something you learn in AA. You learn to meditate. And I used to do it every morning for like over a year. And sometimes during my meditation, I would picture my first day on set ever. And that would take me to like such a place of bliss. So the first day on set was magical. And also, something really funny happened. The first thing that happened was that the truck that was carrying the camera was lost and 2 hours late. And like we didn't know when it was gonna get there. So it was very it was very anticlimactic, and there was literally nothing I could do about it. Like, we just needed to make sure that the driver found their way. And so we're just like sitting and having breakfast together. And it was scary, I'd introduced myself to the crew, and it was even hard for me to say that I was the director. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I just felt so grateful to have by my side the people who had been my collaborators for months now, the DP, the producer, my husband, because I could tell that things were going to go okay, thanks to their expertise. But it was very scary and very exciting.
So when I'm actively watching Thirstygirl, I'm thinking of all the potential backstory there is to this character and to the sister dynamic. I'm also thinking, oh my God, where are they gonna leave? Like, where are they gonna leave us off? Like, how far do we go forward with this journey? And then I was thinking, oh, this is like when I read the notes that this was going to be made into a feature. I'm thinking, oh, where would this situate itself within the feature? Is it a condensed part of a longer thing, or is it really like an X-Acto knife portion where, I don't know, 75% played beforehand? Like what did we see? Thirstygirl, the short.
Yes, it was hard. It was quite hard to decide what to put into the short. And when a mentor of mine suggested I direct a proof of concept for the feature, my first response was, no, this is impossible. This film it's too big and beautiful. And like I can't make a short version. I can't do it justice. And then I got COVID for 3 weeks and I couldn't do anything. And all I did was think about what a short version of Thirsty Girl would be. And by the end of my COVID, I was like, I think I've got it. And what it is it's kind of a condensed version of their journey. So the feature, the first act takes place entirely in New York. You meet Charlie. She's kind of a mess, but she's making it work. She's obviously obsessed with sex and porn. And then she gets a call. Her estranged younger sister relapsed and she's at the hospital. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the beginning of the journey. You get, kind of the backstory of the sisters. Then the second act is they're on the road. Charlie's driving her sister to a rehab in Kentucky. And they get into a bunch of misadventures. They get stranded in a small town in the South. Charlie loses Nick. Charlie, does a lot of messed up stuff. They fight, they separate, they come back together, they make up, and they end the journey to rehab. So it's really a condensed version of the middle of the film. And there's a couple parts of the short that are very, very inspired by the similar beats in the feature, but I found it very boring to just take like copy paste. So I actually rewrote everything. I don't think there's a single line of dialogue that's the same.
Oh, nice.
Um, just because like as an artist, it's not exciting to, recycle material. But yeah, it was hard to figure out, and I think we did a good job. I think it does. I had to watch so many shorts to prepare to write the Thirsty Girl short, because I had really honestly never watched a short before, except for maybe like the Pixar shorts before the Pixar features, because only filmmakers watch short films, let's be real, I think. And so I had to research and decide, like, okay, what do my favorite shorts do well?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that they do at least one thing very well. They kind of choose to maybe focus. It's either like really fantastic vibe, or like a really great twist, or something like that. And so I kind of decided that for the Thirsty Girl short, what was important was establishing the characters and the sister relationship, giving a setting the setting of the feature, so like the road trip, and communicating the tone of the film. Yeah, that was the goal.
They say write what you know. Obviously, has a lot of your DNA. I was perhaps more curious about what you didn't know. What's something that forced you to do some research or explore matters that you hadn't touched in your personal life?
I was writing the Thirsty Girl feature. Probably the only thing I had to research was like how to drive a car. I'm learning now how to drive a car for the first time in my life. And so certain scenes that it was very strange to write a road trip movie as someone who doesn't even know like what any of the things in the car are called. And I would like, text my friend and be like, what's this called? This, or, have to Google. But everything else is so personal. It's almost autobiographical. Just the characters are me and my younger sister. She's not an addict, but just her personality. And everything else is so personal that this is probably the film I'll have to do the least research for.
As a reference point, you mentioned Nymphomaniac. There's also Shame, which are great films in itself. But when it comes to addiction, there's also this other thing called the cell phone. I wanted to get a sense of how you explored that idea, but also like there's one jarring scene where she's driving the car and she has the impulse to want to touch herself as somebody's sitting next to her. And that's like, to me, it's easy to sort of say, okay, well, the phone is addictive, and there's like that acts as that brings Charlie to this whole other world. But it's like a separate note about addiction. Like that impulse right there is like really alarming. How did you go about writing those scenes?
A lot of those moments are kind of drawn from my own personal life. Like, obviously, I've never masturbated while driving a car because I've never driven a car, but I wouldn't put it past myself to have done that. And this is actually like, I don't even know if I can share this. That moment is a little autobiographical. Like, I've experienced something similar, like with my sister in the room. Yeah, that's like the pull of sex addiction. Or any addiction.
Yeah.
You are driven to do things that are morally unethical, dangerous physically, possibly harmful to others. And none of that matters because the pull of the addiction is so strong. It's like you physically need that in the moment. And I wanted to really show the connection between the physical withdrawal symptoms of sex and porn addiction and the physical withdrawals of alcohol and drug addiction. Like, you actually, as a recovering sex addict, you feel physically, or I have felt physically similar withdrawal symptoms of like, literally, I feel this in my body. If I don't do something right now, I'm going to lose my mind. And so that's what I wanted to show.
There's like a little sequence. I want to call it the film's only montage sequence in the bowling alley, and sort of like when we see the bowling ball being manipulated. I don't want to give anything away here in case people do have the chance to see our film. And then there's the whole like there's when she hooks up in the bathroom. I want to say that the vocabulary you're using, or the beats that you're using, it's very much, it reminded me of like how it is to be fully engaged in like getting out of foreplay and getting into the act itself. It's kind of like the film sort of like understands the language of what that is, how that feels in the system, but then it responds or replicates it with the edit.
Thank you for pointing that out. I'm really proud of the editing of the film, especially because my husband, Esteban, he's the editor, and he's also just my filmmaking mentor. And so we worked hard on the edit together at the cost sometimes of our personal relationship. And I do think the intimate scenes are probably my most signature touch as a director for Thirstygirl, because those were the moments that I felt the most strongly about in terms of how they should feel and the pace of them. Because to me, I think what is the hottest part of sex, it's not the intercourse itself, it's like the moment right before it happens. And that is what Charlie's really addicted to. It's the fantasy of what's about to happen and the being so desired. And so that's really where I wanted the intimate scene to live. And as soon as the intercourse actually happens, it's like that doesn't even matter anymore. Like, we're out. And so it's really like the moment right before that is what turns her on the most. And so I love that cut from the intimate scene to outside, because it's like this tension is building, and it's like, oh my God, it's finally gonna happen. And then we're like robbed of that moment because
I mean,
yeah,
when it comes to drug addiction, it's about that initial first hit, right? It's when it enters the bloodstream, or the chemical release, right? It's like it very much replicates how that is. So I was really, really impressed by those choices. Actually, I thought it was quite ballsy to begin the film the way you do begin the film. Because, you know, we don't know if this is going to verge into comedy. We don't know if this is like dramatic in a really like crazy way. We don't understand what we're watching. And the fact that she puts two fingers in her mouth, like I thought, I was just like that initial charge. And so that's why I'm relating it back to one of my earlier questions is like, I think the fact that you love cinema, but you weren't schooled, perhaps allowed for us to get that first portion that we begin with that from the onset. I just thought it was a great choice to introducing Charlie and introducing what her the chasing the dragon will element of it.
Well, you know, that wasn't how I initially wrote the short film. It wasn't to start in in the bathroom. Um, and when I was getting feedback on the cuts, a mentor of mine, Mike Riley, he was like, you got to start with this scene. Um, and
Mike was
and
right.
one one good skill I have as a filmmaker, even though I'm lacking a lot of other skills, is I'm good at listening to people. Um, and like listening to feedback. And so I was like, okay, let's try that. And it really works. Yeah.
Let's talk about your work with your DP Fletcher Wolf. There's like we're in a nocturnal world, and then it's illuminated and very like harsh, bright, natural landscape, and it keeps on revolving like this, cycling through textures of the day. I just wanted to get a sense of the visual strategy that you decide to employ, and that idea is like there's a flipping of a switch, I want to say, throughout the film.
You know, you're not the first person to mention that. I think the cycling between the day and night scapes, that wasn't necessarily something that Fletcher and I talked that much about, but we did talk a lot about um how we would frame Charlie in her different states, whether she's in her addiction, whether she's in withdrawal, she's chasing the addiction, or she's like interacting with it in the moment, or whether she's like actually present in the moment, like they're really present with her sister. So those were kind of like the three key states, I guess, like in reality, in withdrawal, and then in the addiction. And so we made a Fletcher is amazing, and she has so much experience, and I knew I wanted to work with someone who would be able to guide me as a first-time director with the cinematography. And so I really credit the film looking so good to Fletcher. And she's just like a delight to collaborate with. And so in terms of like whether or not the camera is handheld, whether or not we're close to Charlie, the lighting, all of that is decided by the inner state of Charlie. And we even like color coded our scripts based on like these three states so that we would always know like, okay, she's in withdrawal, this is how we want to shoot her. She's in her addiction, this is how we want to shoot her. And I love what Fletcher brought in terms of color theory. So we really wanted to use the lighting of the color to signify the different states of the addiction as well. And so the like cyan, that's her shame, the red, that's obviously like her being in her addiction. And then I love the motel room scene, the one where the sister's sleeping and Charlie's just like sitting on the side of the bed, this like beautiful kind of orange desert warm color, that's like to the tenderness with the sisters.
The reason why I responded so well to this is that there are so many films that deal with addiction, and there's so many tripwires. I think it's one of the hardest subgenres to get right. And and there's always two types of audiences. There's those who innately understand what that looks like. And so there's a bullshit meter that exists with trying to be authentic to that voice, to those people who have experienced it. And then there's people like me who have an understanding of it, but have never spent a minute in those type of shoes. So just congratulations on being able to adhere to a formula that's so hard to get right. And I've like, we've mentioned a couple of feature films, but even those films don't get it entirely correct. And I want to say that I'm so looking forward to the feature film because I think that it's going to work with so many different complex psychological layers that I just highlighted here. So congratulations on the short, and I'm so looking forward to the feature. I imagine that you have some players on board already for the feature. I don't know whether you can divulge them here, but where are you on your path? I imagine you still want to showcase the short on the film festival circuit, and seeing that you got, I don't want to say a second life, but obviously a thumbs up from Sundance means a lot. So what does the near future look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously my current mission is to get the feature made. Hopefully the conversations I'm having right now lead to some exciting developments. And I won't say anything more than that. But in terms of the short film's journey, yes, we definitely have a second life thanks to Sundance. We actually, Thirstygirl got rejected by 22 festivals in a row before Sundance called. And so it was kind of feeling like the end of our festival journey. And now we have a lot of exciting festivals that we're playing in the next few months, which is, I can't like express how grateful I am for the Sundance experience and just the reach of Sundance. I did not realize how impactful being
Mm-hmm.
selected by
Mm-hmm.
Sundance would be for the film. Like it's like night and day in terms of how many people saw it before and how many people have seen it now. It's amazing. So thank you, Sundance. Yeah, I'm very excited to be able to show the film more. Festival journey is a little bit exhausting and distracting, and so I also want to return to my normal life of just like writing. I'm writing a new feature now, and obviously can't wait to get on set to shoot the Thirstygirl feature if that happens this year. But no, all good things, and I feel truly blessed for the Sundance selection. It has brought only incredible things.
Cool. I'm going to say merci. I'm going to say chichi. I'm going to say salamat, I think, if I'm getting those right. Um,
Good
uh,
job.
this week is Valentine's week. And this was my favorite short of the film festival. So that's my Valentine to my cinephilia. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And the best of luck on the multiple journeys ahead. Hey, this is Eric from IONCINEMA.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.